is real. Think Theory Radio with Damian Perdue. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on WCPT 820.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different...
Okay, yep. Sorry, I was just on the phone with him, so he's on the line.
Okay,
ready.
fantastic. Can you bring him
feels
up?
good.
Yep.
I
It gives
appreciate
me
it.
a lot of hope too.
Take a step toward
Okay.
together. Start a
Pastor Hat?
conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/one small step. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm fine. It's wonderful hearing your voice today.
Absolutely.
I'll reach back out to you. I had to get with my mother a little late yesterday.
No worries at all.
Where is that? Okay, so just one moment. Hey, is it LaHonda Chisholm? How you doing? Good morning, Queen, to you. And Carol Saskin, you're right. Never a dull moment. There is so much that is happening. Oh my gosh, all day. How's the First Lady?
She is well. Getting ready to head to work.
Ooh. Please, what do you mean head to work? She works all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
All
Yeah.
the time.
Wake up working.
That's
And
right.
every day.
I mean, all the time. Please give her my love.
Absolutely.
Please do.
Absolutely. Appreciate that.
Oh. Okay, that would be interesting. Okay. I'm sorry. Reverend, I'm always trying to pull up just one or two. I'm always looking for one or two more angles or something that I might not have gotten. So,
I don't. No worries. I'm looking at my little text here.
okay. Okay. So we got that. Okay. Okay. Let me pull her up. And that is that. Okay. Reverend, here we go. Always good to hear your voice.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're right in there.
Oh boy. So I'll be coming right to you. And here we go. That's right there. Everybody's talking about that today. Is it me or is it never a dull moment? Every day.
It's never a dull moment. Every day.
Mama, every day. It's just something
Speedway.
that makes you go, what? Hey, everybody. Dave Dowling, Linda, Andre, LaHonda. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. If not, just please write it out phonetically for me. Carol and LaHonda, then call in today. Call in at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. We'd love to hear your story. And Dave, of course, Louis Chewy, Daryl, how you doing? Praise the Lord to you in Columbus. And Diane, how you doing? My sister down in Dallas, Fort Worth. I love you too, girl. Shirley from Philadelphia. Oh, I'm so glad to be with all of you today. What a blessing it is. What a blessing. What a blessing. What a blessing. Like God got me up this morning. How about that? Because that didn't have to be so.
Okay, we have 1 minute.
Okay. Okay, everybody. So, of course, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court pick today and what that could possibly mean. And
30 seconds.
you've got, for the first time in more than 230 years in the existence of the court, first time a black woman or black women are under serious consideration. That's great. We still need our vote, though. So I'm hoping that we don't do a trade-in. I think that we should do a both and. What do you think, Pastor?
10 seconds.
Both and, yeah,
Both and. I don't want to trade in. I'm still crunchy about the voting rights. And so.
yeah. Yeah, we need it.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world. This is the Santita Jackson Show. War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, January 27, 2022, and what a difference a day makes. Justice Stephen Breyer is set to retire. He will be announcing that from the White House today. We're going to be talking about that. And for the first time in more than 230 years of the existence of the United States Supreme Court, black women, and one black woman in particular, are and is under serious consideration for a spot on the court. So what do you think about that? What do you think about that? And should we be excited about that and then stop thinking about voting rights? I think not. So let us talk about it at 773-763-9278. Where are you calling? WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. I want you to meet my morning stars over on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page, everybody. It's Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Santita Jackson is just a landing page. I can't take any friends there, but I can accept friends on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And so join us over there. That's why it was named Santita Jackson and Friends. So let's get to some of these headlines today, because we got a lot to talk about. And then we'll be talking about the inequality that was exposed and that was expanded under the pandemic with Dr. Max Wolf. In Chicago, it's going to be positively balmy today, 31 degrees above zero and cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 30 degrees above zero and partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 129 points. Boy, they have had quite a time over the past few days. The NASDAQ closed up 2 points. The S&P 500 closed down 6 points. In the NBA, the Timberwolves will be meeting the Warriors tonight, and the Bulls were triumphant over the Raptors, 111-105. In the NHL, Chicago had a good night. Chicago 8 and the Red Wings 5. Everyone is talking about the Supreme Court. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer is expected to formally announce his plans to retire today, clearing the way for President Joe Biden to choose his own nominee for the court. President Biden has vowed to fill the vacancy with an African-American woman, which would represent an historic first. More than 230 years in the existence of the court, nothing like that has ever happened. So we'll be talking about that today on the Santita Jackson Show. In Ukraine, Russian and Ukrainian negotiators have agreed to continue ceasefire talks as concerns that Russia will invade Ukraine continue to escalate. The world has been on edge, fearing an invasion is imminent, but Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba lessened those concerns somewhat yesterday, stating that Russia has not assembled sufficient forces to launch a full-scale invasion. Moderna has given a COVID-19 booster shot. I mean, that is specific to the Omicron variant. What do you think about that, everybody? They're in phase 2 of their clinical trials, and we'll see how that works. And Guess what? Our old friend Nina Turner, State Senator Nina Turner, has launched a new congressional run in Ohio. Of course, she said she is on the side of the people. We cannot wait to have her on the Santita Jackson Show to talk about that. In the meantime, we've got some good news from the anointed, the brilliant. Really, he just does so much. I mean, he works not only as a minister, but he, like us, his ministry just takes him into the community, and he does so much. He teaches, he works with our young people, and we're always so grateful when we can kind of get him in between all the things that he's doing. His household is moving this morning. His beautiful first lady is on her way to work this morning. We're sending her much love. Pastor Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, pastor of the New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church on Chicago's West Side. I hope you will go over to that church. It is one of those beautiful cathedrals that I've ever seen, and the largest representations of African American civil rights leaders and workers and martyrs. The largest stained glass representations of them in the world are housed in that cathedral. In the world, it's nothing like coming in there and sitting in that beautiful, beautiful sanctuary and seeing our martyrs, the people who died for our freedom, who were killed for our freedom, just represented in stained glass. And so we're so grateful to have you, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, pastor, theologian, professor. Oh my goodness, you do so many things. It's wonderful to have you today.
Thank you, Santita, and good morning to the audience. I tell you, it's a great day, and of course, here in Chicago, you just said it will be balmy compared to what we've experienced. So it's a great day. Listen, question today is, what does God expect of us? And the answer is a lot, a lot. And so I was inspired listening to the show the other day, and that theme that the pastor had, great expectations. And I thought we'd revisit that. God is a God of great expectations. And we need to get that down in our spirit. Of course, Matthew 25 is that text of the parable. We call it sometimes the parable of the talents. That Jesus tells a story to demonstrate just how serious God's expectation of us is, how much God expects. And it's a story of three workers and the owner gives 5 talents to one, many resources, 2 talents to another, and 1 to another. 5 to 1. And it goes away and it comes back, and he has expectations. The one who has done 5 talents has doubled and gives 10 and is commended. And then the one who has 2 talents has doubled and brought 4 and is commended. And the one who had 1 says, well, look, I buried mine in the sand. I didn't know what you expected. And so, it's almost like the attitude of, here, I'm giving you back what you gave to me. And it is just almost arrogant for this servant to say that to the owner. And so the owner does what he takes away the one that one has and gives it to the one who has doubled theirs, and then tells that servant that you're wicked and lazy, and banish that servant away to a place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. It's a tragedy. Tragic. But it shows really the expectation of God, that the owner expected the one who had 1 to take it and use it. And that's what God looks at what we have today. Listen, all of us have something to use. And the expectation is that we will maximize what we're given. Look, we can look at the one who has 5 and say, look, we don't have what that one has. But if you look at the parable, it's 5 to 1. It means that most people don't have much. But what we have, we're expected to use it, to maximize it. And when we maximize what we use, God allows it to multiply. Whatever you have, whatever you desire more of, use it. And we simply got to get back to that kind of initiative, that kind of aggressive approach to every day, taking whatever we have and using it and maximizing it literally for the kingdom of God, to do the best that we can do with what we have. And when we think about that, that's the history of African Americans. We took literally nickels and dimes and built universities, colleges and universities. We had less and we did more. We've gone through a lot of name changes. As a people in America, we started out, we came here African, and somehow we became colored, and then we became Negro, and then we were Afro-American, and now we African Americans. But when you look at what colored people did, sometimes, Santita, I want to go back to just being colored, because colored people built banks and insurance companies and churches and institutions and families, literally taking a little bit and maximizing that, and God multiplies it. So that's my challenge today. What expectations does God have of you? A lot. And we've learned that from, your dad. Look at what he does, even to this day. Reverend Jesse Jackson literally squeezes everything out of every single day. No wonder God has given him more time, because when we use what we have, God multiplies it. That's the good news for the day.
I thank you for that. I know I needed that today. It was so funny. A friend of ours, when we were in college, and my father was in the middle of his presidential runs, and people act like that's like the only thing he's ever done. Well, it certainly has been memorable, because he had been on the national stage by that time, 20 years, more than.
Yes.
Working. It was in 1967 that Ebony did their first full-length article on him. I mean, and just think about it, just 2 years before he'd been selling Ebony's and Jets on the corner, because you couldn't buy Ebony's and Jets in the store. And he said, and he was called the Apostle of Economics. And he was a student at the University of Chicago then. And what's interesting about that is that years later, one of our friends, because when we were in college, my parents would wake up and have 20 people extra in the house, because we bring our friends home, which was fine. But our parents created the atmosphere so that, we wanted to be at home. And my mother and father said, we were very deliberate, because whatever we knew, if you did it at home, it was not going to be but so much. You're not going to be drinking. You're not going to be doing drugs. You're not going to be doing that. Not in this house. So there was that. And a friend of ours walked up to Dad and said, how is it that you do so much? And without skipping a beat, he said, how can you do so little? Ooh. And it stunned everybody into silence. And he gave me a kiss, gave my brothers a hug, gave him a hug, and got in the car and left. And he said, oh, wow. And he called me last week and reminded me of that. Now, that happened 30 years ago. But I will never, ever forget that. How do you do so much, Reverend? He said, how can you do so little? So I want to thank you for that.
The indefatigable Reverend Jesse Jackson. And what many of us have learned as mentees from him over the years, above all, is work ethic.
You can't outwork him.
You're not going to outwork him. No, you're not going to do that.
You're not going to do that. But I'll give you another quick story. My father didn't, after a few years, he didn't really drive anymore. People would drive him for security reasons. But this particular morning, and when I went to Whitney Young, I wanted to get to school by about 6:15, 6:30. Why? Because I could eat breakfast and then I could go to the library and just begin my day. And I was very, very structured in that way. And my father knew that. And when he saw that I was going to school in the dark, he had me picked up. He said, no, I don't feel comfortable with you getting on the bus. He did not. He said, I didn't know this was happening. And my mother was like, she's fine. He said, no, I can't take it. So this particular morning, he knocked on my door and he said, honey, Daddy's going to drive you to school this morning. And I said, oh, okay. I thought that meant him, the people who drove him. No, it was just him. I almost collapsed. Well, because I was always worried that someone was going to harm him. So, I'm looking around like, oh gosh, this is a nightmare. But 6 o'clock in the morning, we're on Lakeshore Drive. And as we're approaching downtown, he said, honey, do you see anything? We were looking at the skyline. He said, do you notice anything? I said, no. He said, look at the top of the buildings. I said, okay. He said, the lights at the top, on the top floors are on because the people who run the world are already at work. Whether it's the chairman or the janitor, they're already there. And he was having a meeting with the chairman of the board of Standard Oil of Indiana. He said, he and I have a 6:30 breakfast. That is the only time in his day or mine that we have time to see each other. He said, so.
Nice and powerful. Yeah.
Oh, he said, so I appreciate that you get up and you get out here and you want to be at school at 6:30 when they open the doors. He said, Daddy loves that.
Maximize.
He said, get in there and do it. I said, okay.
The first time that I had dinner with or lunch or something with somebody at one of the tall buildings downtown, and you realize one of the reasons they build them and occupy is they get to look over.
Oh, yeah.
They have stewardship over. Yeah.
And just, you know what? Let that be a lesson, everybody, for your own life. Because we are all the heads of our lives. Well, God is the head of your life, I hope. But you are in charge. You are in charge.
You know what's a sub-theme of that parable of the 5-2-1 is that your excuses only make sense to you. They never make sense to God.
Well, thank you for that.
As the one, think he doesn't have enough to work with. Your excuses only make sense to you. They never make sense to God.
Pastor Marshall Hatch. Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch. No excuses, everybody.
Great expectations.
New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. Very quickly, are you virtual or are you having services in person? Or is it a mixture of both?
Hybrid, because we've got such a big space. We can socially distance. Most of our people are going to be online. It's been a boom for us because the hybrid experience has allowed us to expand our ministry, incredibly. So we're able to reach more people in more places. And still we have the local, we've got the local assembly and the local ministry. It's an exciting place to do ministry in spite of the challenges.
Okay.
But we're going to maximize what God has given us.
Very quickly, how can we see you virtually and how can we come and be with you in person? What is your address?
You can always get us on a Facebook Live at New Mount Pilgrim Chicago, and then we're at New Mount Pilgrim .com, New Mount Pilgrim Chicago, for our website, and you can go on that way. So there's a lot of places you can get us on platforms, the Facebook Live, and of course you can get us on the regular website.
New Mount Pilgrim, everybody. Missionary Baptist Church here in Chicago. Yes, Reverend?
Here in Chicago, on the Great West Side, 4301 West Washington Boulevard in West Garfield Park. We call it Pilgrim Village.
All right.
Oprah Village.
We love it. We love it. We love it. New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, everybody. No excuses. Let's get it moving. Sending you much love and my love to the beautiful Hatch family. They're beautiful family. Beautiful family.
Thank you.
We have got
great expectations.
Okay, great expectations. Thank you. Will make me move this morning. We've got Dr. Shanita Knighton, registered nurse, research scholar at Case Western Reserve University. She is an infection preventionist. We're going to be bringing on Dr. Deborah Holden shortly. But I want to ask you, well, first of all, welcome to the show, Dr. Knighton. I have a question for you. We're seeing, they're calling it a turning point. Cuba is actually, they've developed vaccines, and many of us don't know. Different vaccines have been developed around the world, and they're planning to distribute them in the global south. That is what we used to call the third world is now called the global south. What kind of impact do you think that will have?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I think that the model for which they're setting in regards to sharing, promotes equity and it promotes fairness. That's really the most that I can speak to is that it is an initiative that has the right intention. The other thing is that I can't speak to is if this will be a similar situation where we find out that the vaccines were off too fast, in the midst of trying to get them distributed everywhere. And we're in the same conundrum over again. Because that is exactly what happened in the United States is that trying to get them distributed to everybody in a fast time, trying to make sure that people would take them in a quick time, is turned into a 2-year conundrum of vaccines and boosters, for which, are not working as well as what we hoped they would. But I also think that what came into that was an unrealistic expectation of how many people they would be able to serve in such a short amount of time. So I'm hopeful that Cuba is doing what they're doing. I think that is great, as long as I would say no one gets in their way. Unfortunately, we can live in a selfish world of where, when good initiatives are being done for the overall, then there's always interference with someone that doesn't agree because of a dollar.
Well, let me ask you this.
Or because of currency.
Because you're making a great point. I mean, and you're a researcher. You're a research scholar. So this is what you do. You dig down into the data. There's something called the African paradox. Because the expectation was that COVID would wipe Africa out. It has done the exact opposite. I mean, they've barely, relatively speaking, had any deaths in Africa. I mean, their infection rate and transmission rate without the vaccines is extremely low. According to this report, they have about 9,691 COVID deaths among a population of 1.3 billion people. And yet, ours is substantially higher compared to 143,000, per 328 million people we have in the United States. I mean, it's just stunning. And do you think we study that enough, Doctor?
We don't.
I mean, why do you
sadly,
think we're not looking at that example? I've got less than a minute here. Because to me, if one continent is doing so, they're doing something that we need to be doing here, and they're not part of the discussion.
So I'll be honest, sadly, you ask yourself, is this a situation, and it's not to throw a color, but does it come down a color? So are we not studying them because they're not reflective of the majority of the population in the United States? To feel that it is comparing apples and apples, to be able to take it as an example. Because there's a lot of different things that they've been doing that have worked. It's been talked about, a little bit in the literature as well as a little bit in the news, how they eat. It talks about the fact that, yes, in a lot of areas they did say, no, we don't want vaccines, no, we don't want tests, and that they did have this naturalistic approach. But we're also talking about a resilient people that when Ebola was there, when, you had all different kinds of outbreaks there, they've had to really learn how to be resilient and deal with them as well as decrease spread. And so one of the things that we don't take into account is the fact that historically they've had to deal with a lot of different issues that many of us have not had to. And we honestly should have probably been getting a lesson from them early on, because they are the ones that have had to prepare for the worst and have in other times had so many people die from a lot of other conditions and diseases that now to them this is nothing, and I feel like they knew how to manage it better and come up with better and realistic solutions that was around public health. So I really feel like they're true public health champions.
talk about
across the
breaking it
continent.
down. Talk about breaking it down. More of the Santita Jackson Show as we talk about COVID-19, the African paradox, and getting vaccines and therapeutics out. Because now Florida has been told not to distribute monoclonal antibodies, which some people have found work. Wow. Got to talk about that and so much more. And the Supreme Court. What do you think about Justice Breyer? He is leaving the building, everybody. And it appears that an African American woman is going to be nominated and could be on the Supreme Court. How do you feel about that? Call me. Talk to me on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute. Well, you talk about knocking something out the park. There you go. How about that?
Did you say that Dr. Furholden will be calling us, or did you want me to call her back?
You can try and call her, but she said she'd be calling in. But this segment is going to end at 6:40, which is 7:40. So I just need you to get up CK and Aaron.
Copy that.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
But that was great. And Leandra, thank you for helping me to pronounce your name correctly. Okay, I'm sensitive to that. I have one of those names that made people go, huh, wow. Back in the day, trust and believe. Well, what's your name? I said, it's phonetic. It's Santita. There we go. And girl, and I had a lisp, Dr. Knighton. And my mother made me get those T's out, even with my missing front teeth. She said, then you,
wise woman.
oh yeah, she said, then you need to learn how to, she said, move your lips and you must place your tongue in the place where we will get a T. I just remember bending over. Now, my mother's 5 feet tall, so that was 1,000 years ago. So she said, you will move your lips and you will move your tongue. Give me a T. Oh, I'm grateful. Bless her heart. Move your tongue. Move it. Hey, everybody. And I took some inspiration from you and instruction from Chapearl. I put up my first 2 reels yesterday. I was about to call you Dr. Deb. Me. Dr. Shanina Knighton. I did 2 reels yesterday. So I said,
Oh, did you?
yes. I mean, it was like, oh yeah. I didn't realize you have to do it on your phone. So, I couldn't find it on my computer. And I said, well, it looks like Shanina does it on the phone. Chapearl said, then that's it. Let's go on the phone. Just because Dr. Knighton, I love her reels. I said, okay. You get up there and you hit it. Hey, Monique. Hey, Natalie. Hey, Lee. Hey, Max. Max, how you feeling this morning? I pray that you are doing well. Meddy. Leandra. Leandra, where are you from? John, how you doing? Maria in the house. Meddy in the house. Dave, my brother from up north, Canada. How you doing, Miss Francis? And everybody like and share. And please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And let's begin to watch over there. And let me see. But thank you for speaking to that African paradox because they've had so few deaths, Dr. Knighton, that I'm like, why are we not talking about that? I mean, we've had
1 minute.
This is the biggest continent on Earth and 1.3 billion people. And they've barely had any deaths. And when I speak with my African friends, they all say, no, this is not the problem over here. So we don't want a Western solution. Sorry?
A continent, though. That's what's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's because you talk about
30 seconds.
You mentioned a whole population of people that so many people can learn from. A continent. We're not talking about a country. We're not talking about a
region.
Small area. We're not talking a region. We're talking about a continent. Okay, that has been able to manage this, and you
10 seconds.
at somewhere else like Europe, right? You look at Asia. You look at all of these other areas.
Wait a minute, the so-called developed world.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
To the Jackson Show. I want to take your calls. We're talking about COVID-19, the African paradox. Why are so few people getting COVID in Africa? Not in a country, not in a region, as Dr. Shanina Knighton pointed out, but on the whole continent. It's 1.3 billion people. It's the largest continent on Earth. We found that as we've been drawing the maps, that Africa is several times larger than has been drawn on the maps. Africa is huge. I mean, huge, 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 huge. The continent. It's not a country, it's a continent, everybody. And then, of course, just in a couple minutes, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court. Stephen Breyer, Justice Stephen Breyer, 83 years of age, has decided to retire. He will be announcing that from the White House today. I want to know what your thoughts are, because President Biden pledged to put a black woman on the court. It appears that he just might do that. But will that does that replace our voting rights? You know, I don't think so. I think we need both and. How about that? So, you were making a point, Dr. Shanina Knighton, infection preventionist, which is very interesting. Case Western Reserve University, and you research. As I was looking at this, what Cuba is doing, because Cuba is famous all over the world, every place but here, for producing some of the finest doctors. I mean, and doing a lot of groundbreaking work, particularly as it relates to diseases and issues facing people in the global south and in warm countries. And a lot of people all over the world go there for treatment because they have one of the top. They have a first-rate healthcare system and first-rate doctors. Period. But scientists are mystified, wary, as Africa avoids COVID disaster. Now, that is from ABC News. And then they call it the African paradox because so few people have gotten COVID. So few people have been infected, and the transmission rate is extremely low. It's extremely low. And you said, we can't not look at race. Because if Europe were this successful, we would study it, and that would be the standard. I think that you're right. If we were that successful in the United States, we would study it, and that would be the standard. But somehow or another, we act as if Africa does not exist in this equation. Is that scientific?
So I think the problem comes is that we tend to think of science as being linear, and it's not. Meaning, I can't say that one particular thing can produce an outcome unless I can repeat it over and over and over again. And 9 times out of 10, a lot of times we have problems that are multifaceted or have multiple layers that are going to require, let's say, either multiple interventions, meaning like we have to practice multiple things. And that's been the thing that I've been preaching from the beginning. The one thing that we have not taken into account in the Western world has been, I don't call it diet because I don't like the word diet because it starts with DIE, but I want to say healthy eating habits, okay, of knowing that when the pandemic came, and we know that anything is going to attack the immune system, right? If the goal is for it to promote an infection, and I'm talking about a bug in our body. So if that's the case, you say to yourself, how can we use the tools that we have, which is our bodies, to make sure that they are in the best shape that's possible? Now, would it have not helped somebody to start late about preparing their bodies? Absolutely, yes. Meaning if someone was suffering already from chronic conditions and from, unhealthy eating, which led to obesity, they would have already been in a situation of where they would have been compromised. We forget that 6 out of 10 people in the United States has at least one chronic condition. So even though we are one of the wealthiest countries, we're also one of the sickest healthcare countries. We're also the most expensive healthcare country, but has the poorest health outcomes for a country that has a similar gross domestic product, which means, money. So when you look at that just in itself, you say to yourself, why are we the sickest and why are we not trying to focus on things such as obesity? How I mentioned Santita earlier this month when the CDC came out with the statistics that 95% of the population that died from COVID had on average 4 other conditions. At the top of that list, you had obese conditions such as obesity. You had a combination of COVID with flu and pneumonia. So I'm just kind of bringing up when we look at these factors, could we be telling people more about, hey, make sure that you have a diet that's full of, foods that contain vitamin C, that are fortified with vitamin D. Make sure that, you're going to anti-inflammatory foods or antioxidants, right? Like, where are your blueberries at? Where is your ginger? Where's your lemon? So we could be pushing people towards those things. And any article that I've read about Africa, which has been interesting, they do take into account what they eat. You also have to think about it. I understand that sunlight plays a factor, the ability to be able to plant things. So I just think that they have a lot working in their favor that would, to me, promote health, including the fact that they've already been faced with, let's say, AIDS, HIV, Ebola. It's like when you've been hit by heavy Zika, malaria, they've been hit by these things so much and just trying to preserve the population that they've already been focused on public health. But sometimes we tend to think that money trumps health over here, and that's the problem. So the minute that we can get out of that mindset and realize that a dollar isn't going to save the only body that you have, and that we have to start promoting healthy habits such as healthy eating, exercise, increase incentives for people that don't smoke. It's like literally our country, Jules is, I don't say Jules, so let me not say name brand, but the e-cigarettes. The fact that, okay, y'all gone from e-cigarettes now, going from a regular cigarette to saying, oh, let's promote e-cigarettes. Not realizing that the unintended consequences of some of the chemicals that are in them that are also going to do harm. And so you look at a lot of the things that may be allowed here that are not allowed other places, and that too plays a factor. So unfortunately, these are the unintended consequences of our actions. And this is why I tell people they have to be the CEO of their own health, because not all decisions necessarily are going to be decisions that are going to benefit everybody equitably, or they may not be decisions that are going to benefit your health or think about you in the long term. And I describe all of this stuff to kind of be like the mesothelioma of 2030, 2040. We won't know for 20, 30 years with some of these innovations how they're going to impact us because of how sometimes our research infrastructure is set up with reporting unintended consequences of some of the new things that hit the market.
Well, and this is where, as we move on to talking about the Supreme Court, this is where believing that you are superior and some other people are inferior really hurts us, because everybody has something that they can learn from each other and that they can teach to another. It's very, very important.
Absolutely.
You've got genius everywhere. Genius is everywhere. On every continent, God did not shortchange anyone. And for us not to be looking at the so-called African paradox, as you bring up, sun. Well, that's vitamin D. More than 80% of those in Europe who have died from COVID have been vitamin D deficient. And most of them have been people of color who are in climates that their bodies are not used to. We're used to being in warm, that we're called the sun people for a reason, because we are from sunny climates. It's just a lot to think about. And I want to thank you for that. But stay right there, Dr. Knighton, because I know you want to hear about the Supreme Court. and you know what? You can jump in as a caller, Dr. Knighton. You can.
Okay.
You can. Well, but what do you think about this? As we bring on Attorney C.K. Hoffler, the Supreme Court has been in existence more than 230 years. We might have a black woman who is nominated to the Supreme Court. Is that very important to you? I mean, because we've been talking about trying to get our voting rights. Is it as important as voting rights, more important than voting rights, or, I mean, just your thoughts?
You talking about me, Santita?
Yeah, you.
So I'll be honest with you. I think, like, even right now, as we kind of think about our current administration, and this is just me personally, this is not me speaking on behalf of anybody. It's like when we look at our current administration and had this whole mindset in our head of what was supposed to be done for people of color in regards to advancement of rights, I cannot say that, like, for me, color in this instance is what I would consider
top of mind.
Like this. Somebody could be purple. Yes, it. Somebody could be purple and and they could be advanced in civil rights. As long as they're coming in with the right intent, the voice, are going to be like the mover and shaker, that's what impresses me, right? So looking at somebody's track record to say, you know what, this person has been the advancement of people of color, equity, social justice. When somebody is focused on those issues, they could be, it doesn't matter to me in that regard, right? Having somebody there in regards to color to say that, yes, this is an example, this is a model of why we need to have a Supreme Court justice more diverse. I absolutely 100% agree with that. But there's two factors to me. It's one, the visual piece of it, to say that this has happened, especially as we look at things that are now trying to dismantle affirmative justice, right? So I get it. Like, that is the great part when I'm looking at the visual. But I hope when we talk about the actual work component of it, that this is a valuable component that is going to push us farther than what the current ones have. Because that, to me, right now is the big issue, is that we have to stop just looking at color and look at who's going to be doing the work.
Amen to that.
Yeah, regardless of who's looking, who's watching, they're going to say, nope, I'm standing up for this because this is right, and they're going to be vocal about it, and they're going to bring other people with them. So I think that, to me, is the most important thing for me.
Well, boom. Well, you know what that brings us to? Attorney C.K. Hoffler. She's got a slack jaw again once again today, because I completely agree with that. I want to know just what your thinking is. And now we've got Justice Stephen Breyer. He did what the notorious RBG would not do. Now, what's so funny is that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when she was asked to come and meet with President Obama, she refused to do it. That's right. Because she knew that he was going to ask her to retire. And so she refused to do that. We have to remember that too. And, and we've paid a price for that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I admire the work that she's done, but she made a consequential decision that has been harmful, in my opinion. That having been said, Justice Breyer has done something, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, that many people say he went into it, he thought about it, and he said, you know what? I am going to retire so I can give... I'm going to retire. Now, I don't know his thinking, but the speculation is that he is trying to give President Biden an opportunity to put someone else on the court. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Santita. Good morning. Well, this is just an excellent opportunity for the president to make good on one of his promises, to nominate a Black woman to the U.S. Supreme Court. So now is the time. But it's not just any old Black woman. When I was president of the National Bar Association, we vetted candidates rigorously and recommended them to the federal bench once the Biden administration came on board. We also looked at candidates that we felt, because we knew this day was going to come, and we wanted to be well-positioned and to be able to be advocates on behalf of exceptionally qualified candidates. I think I could list, if I had the time, about 50 African-American women throughout this country who would be well poised to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court, who could be vetted, who could pass muster, who are eminently qualified, more qualified, in my humble opinion, than some of the justices that currently sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. So at this time in history and this moment, Justice Breyer has done this country a favor, and he's done it with regard to the future of the court. So this is the time. This is the time, Santita. And there are so many qualified candidates, but a few of them rise to the top. We've seen people in social media that have been recommended, such as, Oprah Winfrey. Well, technically you don't have to be
right.
a lawyer to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court, but let's just be real. We don't need to waste time on thinking about people like Oprah Winfrey because she doesn't have the judicial temperament as
She's
a
not a lawyer. Next. That's not what she does,
right.
okay?
So I just want to
Yeah, girl, I heard that, and look, I tuned it out. I was like, come on. Next, what?
And I want your listeners to tune that out too. So let's talk about some of the top contenders. Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. Bad to the bone, phenomenal. I was listening to Dr. Knighton talk about some of the things that she wants to see, no matter what the person's color is.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 candidates that I'm going to talk about that I think should be nominated and who are amongst the top are all people who, with my eyes closed, I would love to see on the U.S. Supreme Court to bring a different perspective, a much needed perspective, while this country suffers through crisis after crisis, pandemic after pandemic, not to mention all of the issues that this Supreme Court is going to hear. Another contender, Judge Leandra Krueger. She's at the California Supreme Court. She's young. She also is somebody who has a very strong record on the issues of concern, in my opinion, to our community. I mean, you want someone who is, I don't want to say woke is the word, but that's what young folks say, but who really is a seasoned judge who has a track record. Another judge here in the state of Georgia, Stacey Abrams' sister, Judge Leslie Abrams Gardner. She's on the federal bench here in the Middle District of Georgia. She also is someone who has distinguished herself as a justice, a jurist who's, first of all, brilliant, and all 4 of these women are brilliant that I'm mentioning, but also someone who is a strong contender. And finally, and this, of course, is Congressman Claiborne's top pick. And by the way, we endorsed her when I was president of the National Bar Association as well. We supported all 4 of these women in different iterations. Judge Michelle Childs, South Carolina. She's on the federal district court down there. She is extraordinary and tremendous. And Congressman Claiborne is pushing her. And we know the role that he played in securing and helping and stabilizing, revitalizing the Biden campaign when they were in the toilet and Biden was on his way down, when he was running for president. So those would be the top contenders. There are many more. We hear about Cheryl Eiffel.
Yeah.
Of course she's extraordinary. She has the experience. She could do it. Of course she could.
Well, now, who is she for the audience, for people who do not know?
Okay, she's at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She's
Mm-hmm.
a civil rights lawyer, a human rights lawyer, extraordinary trial lawyer, just tremendous. She has been on point for civil and human rights, reproductive rights, for as long as I can remember.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. I mean, because all the people that you've mentioned, including Cheryl and Eiffel, the oldest person who is in contention, from what I've been reading, is 61. The judge from California, Judge Krueger, is she on the Supreme Court of the state of California, is it?
You're talking about the youngest person.
Yeah, she's 45. I mean, and
right.
Judge Brown Jackson is 51. These are
Absolutely.
young people. Is
Absolutely.
that deliberate?
Of course it is. Absolutely. One of the things that the Biden administration wanted to do and encourage, and I know this because we vetted a lot of candidates, was he wanted younger people to fill these federal slots on the federal bench. And so the same is true for the U.S. Supreme Court. Because why? You want someone with longevity who can be there for a while, who can make an impact, who can make a difference. So absolutely, that's the wish of, I believe, most presidents. They want a younger person. Not unusual.
So what should we be looking for? I mean, a lot of people are mentioning Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, but we don't know who's going to. We do. I mean, you have someone else who Congressman Clyburn is pushing. Okay, we have a plethora of African American women who would be considered for this position. People were hoping that would have happened in the Obama administration, but it's happening now.
Right.
And it's happening while we're in the midst of this voting rights fight. Let's just put on our political hats for a moment, because we are still at the beginning of the week. We have been calling for an executive order for our voting rights. Should we trade one for the other? Because I can see it now, right?
Yeah, we don't need to trade anything for anything. We should ask for all of it. We really should. It's not, what do you mean trade one for the other? Why do we need to trade one for the other? We should ask for voting rights. We should insist on voting rights. We should insist on the next U.S. Supreme Justice being an African-American woman. The reason why Ketanji Brown is at the top of the list is because she's survived the scrutiny and has been confirmed fairly recently by the U.S. Senate, and there were Republicans that voted for her.
Including Lindsey Graham, right?
Including Lindsey Graham. Now, we can't trust this, but at least we know there couldn't be a justification for them not to support her when they supported her, a few months ago. So I think that this is the time we should insist on everything. Executive order. We don't need to lose sight of any of the things that are important to us, Santita.
What is important in a Supreme Court justice? I mean, what should we just objectively be looking for?
Well, you want someone who has the appropriate judicial temperament. You want someone who, has the experience on the bench, and I think that is very important. All of the candidates that I cited and a plethora of others had the judicial temperament, had the experience, are in the pipeline. I'm not so big on the education, but typically, having that they have to have gone to an Ivy League law school. I'm not big on that.
But why is that?
Because I know too. Well, that has been the trajectory of many U.S. Supreme Court justices. Well, Thurgood Marshall, I would argue, one of the most stellar U.S. Supreme Court justices who will go down in history, did not go to an Ivy League law school.
Where did he go?
I'm not so big on. He went to Howard University.
Thank you.
Howard University.
Oh.
HU, Bison, Howard. Mm-hmm. So I say that, Santita, because it may be big for many people, but Judge Ketanji Brown Jack, she checks that box too. Mm-hmm. She's a Harvard. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court justice out of California, Yale. Judge Abrams, Yale. The Judge Childs went to University of South Carolina. Well, we need to mix it up. We need to mix it up because I can tell you, I've been in practice for 35 years, and I have practiced with and opposing many Ivy League. Sometimes I could say all of us could be educated fools, but people who I believe that credential of going to Ivy League school is simply not enough. That's not what's important. But I will tell you that is a trajectory, but all these women touch those boxes in some way.
Well, we'll be looking. I mean, we will see. And Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, she went onto the federal bench just a year ago. Is that not right, CK? And Senators Lindsey Graham, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski supported her. So it has been demonstrated.
Absolutely. It's been demonstrated. She's been vetted. She's been cross-examined. Mm-hmm. She's been, the only difference is any recent opinions that she has. But she's dynamic. She's smart. She is well-reasoned, seasoned. She's right on the issue. She is authentic. She is exactly the profile that we want of a U.S. Supreme Court justice. We want someone who's going to be strong because, some people who are negative say, well, right now what we understand is that, there's a conservative majority. Well, being a member of the U.S. Supreme Court, you're able to talk to your colleagues, open the minds of some of your colleagues. If anyone needs to retire, to me, it would be, Justice Clarence Thomas. But I'm just a little delusional right now.
No, you're not delusional.
He needs to retire because of his positions on things. So, and I'm just going to get a little passionate about it. So, Santita, I mean, there are a lot of things that I could say. Race is not necessarily the critical factor. It's having the voice of a Black woman finally How in the world, with the history of this country, could you not have, at this point, ever had a black woman with all the eminently qualified black women to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court? That makes no sense. So now is the time. We're going to play by the rules. We want people who are eminently qualified, and here they are. There should be no excuse for someone who has just been confirmed by the very body who would be asked to vote, vet, and confirm her again a few months later.
Thank you. Last year she was confirmed.
Yep.
So, and then you just have, but and what I want people who will offer the perspective of, as my father says, not from the mansion down, but from the manger up. That is the value to me of having a poor white person, a black person, a poor black person, a poor person. I mean, just someone who brings you, someone who's not from the Ivy League. We need all of that. More of the Santita Jackson Show. Let's talk about the Supreme Court. Mama D, I'm going to get to you on the other side of the break on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody like and share on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Back in just a minute. Thank you, CK.
You're welcome, Santita. I'm so sorry I have to run.
I know.
But I just had to get that off my chest. I mean, I did do a couple of interviews already about this, but I had to get it off my chest because, like someone said to me, well, it's not going to change the conservative. You don't know what it's going to change. But here we have incredibly qualified candidates and the president has said this is what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. So he's going to do it. There's no way he can back away from it. There's no way. I don't even entertain the notion that he's not going to nominate an African American woman. I don't even entertain it because that's not even a feasible thought. So he's going to do it. We just want to make sure that he's doing it with all these incredible black women who could serve with distinction, make us proud, and bring that voice. That voice is not represented. And I say this with all due respect to Justice Sotomayor. She's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. But she's not an African-American woman. She brings yet a different perspective than any of the judges that I mentioned and so many others would bring. That's the nature of the beast. That's the wonderful thing about this country, is that we all bring a unique perspective. We don't want a monolithic group. But we certainly don't want a monolithic conservative-leaning group either. We have to have a blend, and you need to have strong voices, not voices that will, whatever.
Okay, I have Attorney Jones.
No longer get along, but strong voices. And that's what we would have in these black women that I've mentioned.
Amen.
And so many others.
Amen. Amen. Well, people want you to be nominated for the Supreme Court, so there we go.
I've heard that too, and I'm so honored that people would even think that way of me. But I think that what I need to do is keep on fighting on this side so that when people need to go into court and when people want to hear a different analysis, legal analysis of cases, that I can be there to provide that voice. But I'm just so honored when people have said that. I receive text messages, emails, but no, that's not my calling. But fighting is my calling. And you got to be every place, fight from the inside, from the outside, and everywhere in between. And that's what I would like to do.
Well, we love it. I just, I would love to see you in a hearing because I know you would smash it. Love it. Oh, yes. Well, before you go, say hello, goodbye to Attorney Daryl Jones, who's with us today.
Hi, Daryl Jones, Attorney Daryl Jones. So good to hear you, and I'm sorry I've got to leave, but look, this is one of the most exciting discussions that we are having in this country and the world. The world is watching this. Biden needs to put his money where his mouth is. I hate to put it that way, but he needs to make good on this promise. And we still need to fight for voting rights. We still need the executive orders. We still need all that. It's not one or the other. It's all comprehensive. We got to ask for everything and demand it.
That's right. This doesn't make up for last week. Hello. Sorry.
Amen. Good morning, Justice Coughlin.
I gotta run. Bye-bye.
That's right. Shanina, are you still there?
She is not.
Oh, okay, I just had to check.
Actually, Mrs. Wells just called
Uh-huh.
and had a question for Attorney Hoffler.
Well,
So-
she can ask the question of Attorney Jones.
Okay, I'll put her through.
Okay. Chappelle Wells?
Yes, I'm here. I had a question for CK.
She left.
You know,
We've got Attorney Jones here.
no, it's okay. Maybe Attorney Jones can answer about the Supreme Court justices. I want to know what, based on, because, we got Clarence Thomas.
Well, hold
Everybody
on.
was excited that he was Black.
Let me let you ask that on the air.
Okay.
Okay, because I want everyone to hear.
Okay.
I want everyone to hear.
Okay.
But you can say hello to, because Attorney Jones was asking for some biscuits from you yesterday. So, Attorney Jones, there she is.
Yes, honey.
Would you still like me to try and contact Attorney Conley?
I'm going to keep waiting for the
Yeah.
sweet potato biscuits.
Well, no, that's okay. That's okay. I said, is that just, I said, if he was about to go into this erudite presentation. And he said, first, I want my biscuits. I was like, what? This is messing me up. I said, he doesn't eat carbs anyway, but that's okay. Maybe it's once a week thing. Oh, Lord, yes.
They're high fiber.
Yeah. The sweet potatoes in it. That's right. Matt, I'm sorry. What were you saying, hon?
Would you still like for me to try and contact Attorney Conley?
Well, try her one more time. But we've got that's okay. We've got Attorney Jones because, in fact, she has expanded her family. She is married now, and so she is doing runs with the children today. She told me she would have to do that too. So we'll let her go. But this is a conversation we're going to continue. And wait a minute, Joyce said, "What about those biscuits, Chappelle?" Hello.
I gotta get them together.
We've got about 1 minute, by the way.
Well, you have to figure out how to send them to Attorney Jones in Maryland. So I know you can do it.
We might just have to take a road trip. I love road trips, Santita.
Well, now that would be fun for me because DC, the DMV is my spot. I would love it. I love it. I didn't even realize how much I enjoy DC still. I mean, and nothing beats DC radio. Oh my god.
30 seconds.
Ooh. Black radio in DC can't be beat. I didn't say beaten. It
I
can't
love
be.
the cleanliness. When I was in the subway, I'm like, is this a real subway?
No, that's the Metro. Okay. Just want you to know. And it's quiet, and you hear the little bing, bing, bing.
10 seconds.
Oh, I love my DC, and I miss Mayor Barry. Boy, oh boy, what a wonderful mayor he was. Whew, he completely changed.
The world, change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to join me on my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody, meet us over there on the Santita Jackson Show channel. And, of course, on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Not the Santita Jackson Show, just a landing page. If you want to be engaged with me, please, and if you want to be my friend, please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I can't take any friends on the Santita Jackson page. I can't. They won't let me do it. So I want to hear from you. We're talking about the Supreme Court, and then we're going to be talking about this pandemic at the bottom of the hour, the pandemic, and how it is exposed and increased inequality. Let's get to some of these headlines so we can find out about what's going to happen with the retirement of Justice Stephen Breyer. Chicago will have a high of 31 degrees. It will be cloudy today. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 30 degrees. Excuse me, everybody. That's above zero. Partly cloudy, I have to clarify, because it has been cold in these parts over the past few days. The Dow closed down 129 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 2 points. And the S&P 500 closed down 6 points. In the NBA, the Bulls were triumphant over the Raptors, 111-105 last night. And tonight, the Timberwolves will be at the Warriors, the Golden State Warriors. And the NHL, well, Chicago had a great time yesterday. Chicago 8 and the Red Wings 5. What is happening in the world today? Well, we have got coronavirus, everybody. Moderna says it has given a COVID-19 booster shot specific to the Omicron variant to the first participant in their phase 2 clinical trial. Research published yesterday in the New England Journal of Medicine found that a booster dose of the vaccine remained durable against the Omicron variant, but did show signs of waning antibody protection. And Russian and Ukrainian negotiators have agreed to continue ceasefire talks as concerns that Russia will invade Ukraine continue to escalate. The world has been on edge, fearing that an invasion is imminent, but Ukrainian foreign minister has lessened those concerns somewhat by stating that Russia has not assembled sufficient forces to be any full-scale threat and to launch a full-scale invasion. Everybody, you know I have been on a campaign to help us to save our homes, and I mean it. If you do not have good credit, if you have poor credit, if you don't have any credit at all, that should not stand in between you and home ownership. If you've had financial difficulties, particularly over the past 2 years, that shouldn't stand in your way. And Team Hochberg, they can help you to do it. They will tell you, we'll work with you no matter what your circumstance. Trust me, nothing can be too difficult for them to resolve. We want you to go to 855-56-DAVID. Call them at 855-56-DAVID or go to 56david.com, 56david.com, so that you can get on the path to home ownership. If you're purchasing a new home, if you're refinancing your existing home, securing a VA loan, or if you need a reverse mortgage, Team Hochberg is your trusted local lender. Check this out. Mark had a credit score of 670, which is not high, everybody. He contacted another lender to refinance his condo. It did not work out. This lender told them that they could not help him because his condo wasn't FHA approved. How many of you have heard that? So he called Team Hochberg, which he should have done in the first place. And Team Hochberg got his condo FHA approved. Then they helped him to secure an FHA loan to pay off his credit card debt, which reduced his payments over $500 a month, saving him $6,000 a year. Now, let's go back over this. He went to another lender, not Team Hochberg. They couldn't help him. They said, you don't have an FHA secured loan. Well, guess what? Team Hochberg got them the FHA secured loan, used the loan to help them to pay off their debt and save them $6,000 a year. So call Team Hochberg. They've helped thousands of WCPT listeners, and they can even help you up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, everybody. They work there too. So call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or visit 56david.com and get on the road to home ownership. Everybody, let's talk about the Supreme Court. Justice Stephen Breyer, the oldest member of the court at 83 years of age, he has decided to retire. He's going to make that announcement from the White House today. He was appointed in 1994 by President Bill Clinton, and he's been under a lot of pressure to retire, while Democrats have a narrow control over the Senate. And so he has decided to do what the notorious RBG would not do. When President Obama kept calling her, asking her to meet with her, she knew that he wanted her to retire, and she refused to meet with him. Can you believe it? That's the story they don't tell about the notorious RBG. Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. This could be of great consequence because this is flying in the face of a campaign promise that President Biden made. He also made promises about voting rights, but this is a little different. And he is now, he said he will choose a black woman. Is that consequential?
Oh, thank you, Santita. Thank you for having me and opening up the dialogue on this very important topic. Yeah, it is extremely consequential that President Biden. Let's remember that he has made a campaign promise that he would put a African American woman on the Supreme Court. It's, as you know, there's never been a black woman on the Supreme Court. So this is consequential. It's not simply consequential with regards to it being a black woman, although that in itself is consequential. It's consequential because I believe that when you look at the foundation of the democracy and who has carried the burden, who has the best eyes, the best prism from which to see justice and how it should flow down, that would be the black woman. And that's what he now has the opportunity to put in place on the Supreme Court. It will, it will have an interesting impact because it will be the most number of women on the Supreme Court ever overall. But more importantly, it's going to be the first time you actually have two African Americans that'll be on the Supreme Court, and you're going to have very diverse views coming from those two. So it's going to be extremely consequential to have a black woman that's on the court. I think that politically for President Biden, it will also be a boost for him because this is an easy lift. This should not be a difficult thing to put in place to put the black woman, African American woman, on the Supreme Court. What will be slightly more interesting to see, in my mind, is to see how quickly they can get done. We saw how quickly they put the last justice on, so we know that this is something that can be expedited. And I would call for him to expeditiously to get it done.
Well, I mean, because the Republicans are already planning, they're saying that there is a way for them to block this nomination from going forward. And there's even speculation that Vice President Harris could be asked, that they could pull that rabbit out the hat, which would be interesting because they're struggling in the polls, and I'm sure they're looking for answers. And she's been floated as a possible Supreme Court justice before she became vice president. Your thoughts? I mean, because just a few days ago, we have been pushing for voting rights. Should we now say, okay, at least we got this?
Well, no, I don't think it's at least we got this. I believe that, it's all interconnected because I believe that, whether it's, I'm certainly not one of the people that's going to be, pushing for Vice President Harris. I think she should stay in the vice presidential position, and let's get one of our African American women that's currently serving in the U.S. District Court or the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals into that position. But whoever it is, one of the reasons that I say that, it's not taking our eyes off of the prize of voting rights, because we know what the Supreme Court has done with regards to voting rights. And so we need to be certain that we have a strong voice on that Supreme Court, not just for today, but also for the future, regarding voting rights that will come up, regarding civil rights issues that are going to come before the Supreme Court. So I think it's extremely important that we have a strong African American woman on that Supreme Court who's willing to stand the ground. We didn't completely know what we were getting when we got Clarence Thomas.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. No. Because as soon as he brought up high-tech lynching, some of us just said, oh, well, he really understands. And once he gets, I said, no. This is a man who, when he was at Yale's law school, was so ashamed of his blackness. He held the shirt sleeve up on his hands, white of his hands, although you can see the black on the other side. I mean, he's got issues, okay? So it's just, we keep leaning in on race instead of principle. And it hurts everybody when they do that. Identity politics does have its limits. We knew who he was. You knew who he was. He talked about his own family, calling them welfare queens. Who does that? Huh?
Yeah.
You're making me get nonverbal and sound crazy. Who does that? No.
But I tell you, we've got to counter that. We've got to counter that on the court, and we're going to have this opportunity to, we can't cancel him out, but we can certainly counter what people are hearing there that's coming from the African member of the Supreme Court, and that's what we've got to do with this next nominee.
You know what? I have a couple of callers at least who want to speak with you, so let's get right to them. Mama D, what's on your mind today?
Well, hallelujah. Greetings to you.
God bless you.
Reverend Dr. Prophet King, said, we've got to get the language straight. So what happened to formerly known as Negroes did not happen to everybody. And as a Crimes Against Humanity descendant and Jim Crow genocide survivor, my question is, will the woman be African American or an immigrant from Haiti or another country or a woman of color, which includes every woman except the white woman, which is reverse segregation? But it matters to me because I'm noticing the trend that even when it comes to movies like Fred Hampton Jr. or they are using foreign actresses, Africa and other countries. These are immigrants. These are not American Africans. So that matters to me. Do you think it should matter just as long as she's got a black face, she can be an immigrant or anything else? What do you think?
You know, I embrace the diaspora. That having been said, I also embrace the fact that the African American, the Black American, the descendant of slaves have a very specific narrative. And I do see that. I do see an attempt to push that aside. And I push back against that. At the same time, I embrace our responsibility in this American project as African Americans to pave the way for our brothers and sisters who come in from all over the diaspora. That having been said, as they come here, they need to understand what our story is. They need to understand Emmett Till. They need to understand Crispus Attucks. They need to understand Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and Phyllis Wheatley. They need to understand all of that. They need to understand the auction block at Jamestown. They need to understand upon whose shoulders they stand and how it is that they've been able to get here and function. So, that having been said, I think you make a point, but for the record, the leading candidate thus far, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, is African American. Interestingly enough, though, she's related by marriage to former Speaker Paul Ryan. So, how do you like them apples? You can't make this stuff up. Let me go to you, Pam. What's on your mind today?
Good morning, Santita, and to the panel.
Good morning.
I am in support of Cheryl Eiffel. Now, it's probably not likely that she'll get that, but I really would be supportive of her. And it's kind of just in the same, I guess, legacy of a Thurgood Marshall for me. So I would like to see her. And Santita, as for Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she didn't want President Obama to make that nomination for whatever reason. And I just always found it a little strange that she was friends with Scalia. And that's not to say that you can't be collegial to your, co-workers or, other Supreme Court justices. But I just always thought that was strange that Scalia in his rulings and just in his own being, that would not be a person that I would want to call a friend.
Well, not necessarily. The only reason I give you a little pushback on that is that you would be surprised. A lot of people with whom you might be allied politically, they're distasteful, and you might be distasteful to them. And then a lot of your political foes become your best friends. That happens in life. It really does happen in life. That having been said, what's to me even more interesting about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's story is that Justice Scalia used to browbeat her. Because she was never this progressive, this great liberal, right, Attorney Jones? And there have been stories from the court that she would write something that would be just a slightly to the left of him, and he was to the right of, I hate to say it, Attila the Hun, and he could use his friendship to browbeat her and make her write an opinion that was more conservative than her original writing. So that to me,
well, that was right.
Yeah, but so for me, because I know I have friends all over the political spectrum, and sometimes they have been real friends, and I've had some political allies who've tried to take me and my family out. And it's just it's just life. If you're going to be in the arena, shut up and play the game and do your thing. But very quickly, because I need to take another caller. I want you to give your closing comment, Pam.
Sure. Well, here's my final thought on that. If you are supporting rulings, writing opinions, or any position that is harmful to Black people, no, I cannot be your friend. I cannot be a political ally. We keep saying that there are no no permanent enemy's interest. I think we need to rethink that entire statement because I think that has been harmful to Black people. But I'll hang up and listen. And Cheryl Eiffel would be a person I'd love to see take that appointment.
She'd be great. You're right. I just, I have to respectfully disagree. I think that once you get in these environments, Daryl, you find that you get to Congress, you get into a particular environment, and you find that you just meet some people, and they can be nice to you, they can be kind to you, they can actually like you. And there are a lot of folks who call themselves friends of Black people, friends of the downtrodden, and they really are not. All you have to do is look at their policies, and they look like you. So that's why I'm over all this. I want someone who looks like me. Are you serious? No, I want someone who understands the plight of the disadvantaged and who's going to work to get people up out of the hole. Before you speak to that, I want you to wrap everything up for us before we go. I've got Chapearl on with us. Chapearl, what's on your mind? And you're gonna get his biscuits to him. We get that. Okay.
Yes, Santita. I had two quick questions for Attorney Jones. The first one is, what are their politics? The ones that are basically on the short list for Biden, what do they believe in regards to civil rights, affirmative action, Roe v. Wade, criminal justice reform? What do they believe in? Because, we got Clarence Thomas because he was a Black face. So, I do want to know the background of these women and how they have been governing as they have been judges. Because I think that where we sometimes go wrong is that we're so excited about just having a Black person in place and that we don't really peel the onion and see what they stand for and what they believe in, and if it will be beneficial to us. So, and then the second point is, the second question that I had was, do you believe that Biden should expand the court? Because we know that affirmative action right now is under attack, and they're going to take this up. Do you think that it's imperative at this time that the court is expanded? And I'll listen for your response.
Well, you know what, and I want you to take it slowly, one at a time. And in fact, if you can stay with me beyond the commercial break, I want you to speak to the court, to that issue on the other side of the commercial break, and speak to her first question first, because I think that deserves just a little bit more of attention, because I don't think that, because the number of people on the Supreme Court is not written in stone. But your first question was what, Chapearl? Their politics? Well, let me ask you this. Attorney Jones, do you think that judges who feel they might have a shot at say at a federal judgeship or even the Supreme Court, do you think they kind of like play it close to the vest instead of showing what their politics are?
Yeah, and to some degree they do. The concept really for the judges is to be non-political, right? To be non-political. They're supposed to be, just on the facts, blah, 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 blah. But when you start to peel back that onion, as Chapearl was indicating, and going into some of their decisions, where do they fall on the decisions with regard to reproductive rights? Where do they fall in cases where they had the opportunity to go either way? What decision did they make? And a lot of what we're going to see happening over the next several days as the candidate is pushed forward and the breakdown and the analysis of them begin, you're going to see all the groups coming up, pulling out all of their old decisions. They're going to be pulling out these journals that they've written, the law journals, where they've written stories on various topics. And that's how you really determine what the judge's interest is and what their leanings are and what their future activities and future positions may be. And I think that what you're going to find with at least the, two of the judges that have been mentioned for the Supreme Court, two of the African-American women that have been mentioned for the Supreme Court, I suspect that what you're going to find is that their interest is going to be more in line with what what you're talking about. I think keep it 100, right? You're going to find that these African American women judges have been keeping it real, and they haven't been teetering on racial questions. They've been real on the racial questions. They've been standing up and recognizing the history that they've come from and that we've come from, and standing true to it. And I think that as they unpeel and research and dig for their writings, that's what they're going to find, is that consistency that's going to be there. So I'm really excited with regards to the names that have popped up and the solidness. They're just solid African American people, and that's what I like, and that's what I think they're going to represent once they make it to the bench.
And bringing the lived experience of understanding the downside of advantage of life. That's what you want. That's what we need on the court. I look forward to the day that we're going to have someone who is not from the Ivy League. Genius did not begin and end in the Ivy League, everybody. Remember, Dr. King scored poorly on verbal skills on a standardized test when he was a student. Okay? And he went to Morehouse. Thank you very much. So there we go. Going to be talking with Dr. Max Wolf, but we're going to hold Attorney Darrell Jones over, and of course speak to Chaparral about her biscuits and celebrations by us right here on the Santita Jackson Show. Going to talk about the pandemic and how it has exposed and expanded inequality. We're going to continue the discussion about the Supreme Court justice on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in a minute. Angela, I agree with you. Cheryl and Eiffel would be great. She'd be great. But, I don't think they would make a move that bold. Chaparral, you still there? Ooh.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, because you have to do your thing just on the other side of the break, right?
Yes, I'm ready.
Mm-hmm. You've gotten a whole lot of time. She's my co-host today, Attorney Jones. But she's got a question to ask you. That's right.
While you're co-hosting, Chaparral, you know what I'm going to say? You can go on over to the oven.
Oh, my gosh. Do you know how you just sounded right now?
Come up with this recipe for these sweet potato dishes. I'm fine. I'll do the research.
Oh, my gosh. I couldn't.
I'll wait till a man's heart is to his stomach. So, hey.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my goodness. Bless your heart. That is hilarious. He said just as long as you scoot on over to that oven, you can say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, Dr. Wolf is on the line and ready.
Absolutely. Dr. Wolf, how you doing this morning?
Cooking is a new art, Santita.
What is?
I said cooking has become a new art again. Bringing the big mamas back. Big mamas, men miss that. Men miss a good home cooked meal.
They should. They should. My mother said, if you can't cook him a meal, what does he need you for? Now, mind you, my mother walked into marriage. Yes, I'm putting her on blast. My mother did not know how to cook. She thought cooking was boiling a hot dog. Yes. And my mother's mother said, your father was real patient with you. He was real patient with your mama. Because she did not know how to do any of this. But she surrounded herself with a lot of old women who really cook. My mother is a heck of a cook. But I tell you, I'm waiting on my string beans and greens from Chaparral next week with my extra ham hocks. Hello.
Yes. I am getting it ready for you, Santita, for next weekend.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready. I mean, the string beans you brought me for Christmas, they were gone the next day. I just ate string beans. They were so good. Oh, Darrell, when you come to Chicago, we're going to have Chaparral just make something for us. I promise you're going to love it.
I'm getting hungry just as you're talking about. I mean, the string beans sound awesome.
Well, now, but we can't leave out Max Wolf. Now, Dr. Wolf, can you eat? You don't eat pork, do you?
I do.
You do? Okay. All right. Now I'm just checking because different folks have different dietary restrictions, and everybody who goes to a black college stops eating the pig. Just so that you know.
Right. I mean, once you have a cardiologist,
1 minute.
They probably don't tell you to celebrate the pig too much in your diet, but you can eat it.
No, please. We celebrate. So just stay right here. People are calling in about the Supreme Court. So I have Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, brilliant civil rights lawyer. He's based in Washington, and he's got to answer one more question, and then we're going to pivot right to you so we can talk about this pandemic inequality. Have you heard about John Nichols' new book? Coronavirus, criminals, and pandemic. Oh goodness, it's out this week. It's. I've been reading it.
I know
It's
he has
fantastic.
a book, but I haven't read it yet.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I mean, these pharmaceutical companies have been making $1,000 a second. $1,000 a second. Oh yeah, while they're raising the prices on
10
everything.
seconds.
Here, we paid for it, and our government scientists developed these vaccines, and they're the ones who are making the money. Oh, it's shameful. Stay right there.
Change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. We've been talking about the Supreme Court. You can continue to call about that. And we're going to talk about this pandemic, the pandemic that has exposed and expanded inequality. But before we do, let us get to celebrations by us with Chapearl. Gee, what did you say? Everybody's looking for Big Mama to cook again. And we are. I miss my soul food restaurants here in Chicago. But thank goodness we have you.
Yes, Santita, and we are still cooking. We are still available to take care of all your catering needs. Yes, we still have those green beans as well as also the greens, mac and cheese, mozzarella, Cajun pasta, as well as also our smothered beef, our smothered chicken, ham, turkey, whatever it is that you need for your holiday needs. But Celebrations by Us is also a complete event planner. So we do birthday parties as well as baby showers, weddings, floral arrangements, balloon bouquets, whatever it is that you need for your event needs. Don't hesitate to give us a call at 708-526-4546. That's 708-526-4546, and reach us at celebrationsbyus.org. Thanks so much, Santita.
Stay right there. You had the second part of your question for Attorney Jones?
Yes, the second part of the question was, does Attorney Jones feel that right now that Biden should expand the court so that we can protect things like affirmative action and civil rights?
Yeah, and Chapearl, that's an excellent question. And, a lot of people don't know or may not remember that the Supreme Court has been expanded before. It would not be a first time if the president decided to do that. Prior to the Civil War, the court was expanded at least 6 times. So there is precedent that's there for the expansion of the Supreme Court. The issue that actually then becomes that once you start that process of expanding the court, at what point do you stop? Does the party in control just continue to expand it so they can get the control of the court in the position that they wanted? I mean, certainly there's a lot of positive, I think, to President Biden expanding the court. But I think that the negative side of that, and the positive being that, we'll be able to deal with the voting rights issues. We'll be able to deal with the civil rights issues. The downside to that is do you just continue expanding? And there are a lot of professors that have given a lot of different opinions with regards to it. The one that I probably lean toward is that expand the court and then don't make it just a 9-person court. You can break it up into blocks, so you have different A, B, and C that all have the same powers, but different blocks can hear the cases. So that was one of the concepts that's been thrown out that I thought made a lot of sense to me.
Oh, okay. That's a great. I hadn't even considered that as a possibility. So, I mean, because they determine which cases are heard. Do you think that if we had like it's almost like ranked choice, right? That would they be able to hear more cases?
Yeah, they would have the ability to hear more cases because you'd have more justices and more venues than that would then be available.
Okay, that's a great idea. Last question from Noel. Noel, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Ms. Jackson. How you doing?
It's always great hearing your voice. Thank you so much for calling.
Yes. I think that's not a good idea to expand the court like the gentleman just explained. Where does it stop? The next administration might expand the court again. So all you're going to have is just another branch of Congress. That's all the court is going to become.
Okay, what is your question, Noel?
No, I'm saying if we expand the court, what's to stop the next administration from expanding the court as well?
Well, I mean, you know what? He makes that point, Attorney Jones. Your final thought on that? I mean, and also, I don't want to expand the court just to save issues that are near and dear to me. You know, because ultimately, we're supposed to be making this a more just society, right? And so, what about expanding the court? How would you do that in a way that could be fair for everybody? Well, it's only fair if it is fair for everybody. So how could that happen?
Yeah, and it's an interesting question because, again, where we are at the 9 justices, we didn't start at 9 justices, right? We started at much fewer than that, and we've expanded 6 times. So, the question isn't one of simply fairness, right? I think we need to approach it as a process-oriented question. And the question is, can the Supreme Court do more if it's broken into panels as opposed to sitting as one body of 9 justices? I think the answer to that question is yes. And once those panels are broken out in that manner, that's when you have the expansion that's in place for who's going to be listening to what cases and where they come up. And it's more of the a question of which court the question may end up lying with which panel you end up being in front of. And I think that certainly would open it up a whole lot more.
Well, ultimately, I guess the American project is not static; it's dynamic, and we have to, I guess, at every iteration of the republic. I mean, what is France? They're on their 5th republic. We have to have a rethink. We have to have a rethink about who we are and where we are, because we're not who we were 200 plus years ago. We're not who we were 150 years ago, 100 years ago. We're not. We just continue to change. Oh, Attorney Darrell Jones, Chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, it's always an honor and a pleasure to have you with us every time you come on. You're just fantastic.
Thank you so much, Santita. Look forward to getting together with you sometime soon, I hope.
I hope. Come on to Chicago and just put on those down coats, plural. That's all you need to do.
I'll wait for the summer. Thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness. It's Thursday. You know what time it is. We've got to talk with Dr. Max Wolf, brilliant economist. And I just want to talk. Well, COVID-19 is it's endemic to the news cycle. It's endemic to our lives. And now it's endemic to the health system, apparently. But you, of course, as an economist, look at this in terms of just how it's impacted us, the economies, our money, how we lived. And, we have a pastor who comes on and gives us good news every Friday, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. And she said, COVID is a snitch. COVID really exposed who we are. And there is a series of articles and data that shows that COVID leaves a legacy of increased inequality. Now, did they expose the inequality? Did COVID expose inequality, expand it, or both?
Yeah, certainly both. And I guess COVID is also, to your earlier comment, still ongoing and too early to know for sure, right? So still kind of in process and too early to have any really conclusive kind of discussion on a look-back basis, but we can see what's happened so far, right? And so far, COVID really increased inequality globally quite a lot, right? Because some governments were wealthy and stimulated their economies and sort of propped up the communities around their countries pretty well, and other countries really didn't. Other countries really kind of wrote it out. And either, this is a very serious misunderstanding in the U.S., they either locked things down but didn't compensate people, or the most disastrous course, which is the thing Americans haven't figured out, which is not locking it down, letting the disease rage, and letting the customers figure out that there'll be a side order of death with their dinner, or that people will go to work and die there. And so they stop going to work, and you have global supply chain problems, right? So we've had this sort of off-centered debate here about whether we should take precautions or not, assuming that we could make the pandemic go away by ignoring it. And unfortunately, pretending it's not real or ignoring it is still a popular coping mechanism. Very understandable that you'd want to do that, but pretty disastrous when it's put into effect, right? So different regions inside countries, different countries have had very different responses, very different access to vaccines. Part of the reason for this sort of dance of the variants here is that the majority of the world's population is still waiting, possibly in vain, to be vaccinated, or to have the opportunity to be vaccinated, whether or not they want to, right? So even that opportunity has proved elusive for the majority of the world's population still by a wide margin. So globally, a lot of inequality. And then domestically here in the U.S., we had an odd cycle. So we had an unusual government intervention to try to prop up the economy. And even though everyone says it's not true, that decreased the inequality for a while. And then we had the sudden abandonment in a lot of jurisdictions of those support programs, even though they're still needed. Right? And we also have this debate that everyone now wants to forget about how we're going to slash all these special benefits to low-income people to make them go back to work, because they weren't going back to work, remember, because they were getting $300 a week. So as is the cruel nature of these things, we slashed all those programs and no one went back to work. They just got a lot more poor and desperate. And I'm sure it'll be another controversial 5 years of studies before someone connects that to the surge in violent crime. Right. But I mean, we know that everybody bought guns during the downturn and then didn't get their jobs back or didn't go back to work. And it'll take some sort of heavy fighting for 10 years to decide whether there's a relationship between desperate, unemployed people who feel socially betrayed, who are heavily armed, and an increase in gun crime. I wouldn't want to speculate on that, but I have a guess. In any case, we know that the inequalities have followed in tow. And we know some interesting things. So we know that people who are less educated and women and people in the service economy have been dealt a series of really serious blows here. And those tend to be somewhat economically fragile communities. So single moms as a group have had an extremely difficult time. Service industry employees, a lot of whom are single moms and young women, have had a really hard time. And the reduction in female wages and employment has been, we've undone several decades of advance there. Now this is still early and there's signs of people returning to work. And so there's reason to be somewhat optimistic that, things will be a natural recovery to a point above where we are now. But stock take from here, those are some of the big trends that we need to keep a really close eye on.
We're talking about the pandemic and inequality. Many people are saying, and the data is showing, that the inequality in our society increased during the pandemic. Let me just ask a question that's very simple. Why? This is what Hannah says. She said, I still hate COVID. It's equal opportunity too. What else did she say? She said, just like broadband access, you can be a millionaire or middle class, but if the government has not expanded the infrastructure to your area, you're not going to have internet access. Similarly, if medications are limited geographically, that same millionaire or middle class family still doesn't have access. Again, did this, because we saw some of let's go to the children. Some of them didn't miss a beat, right? Some kids kept going to school. And the Ivy League schools and all the colleges still accepted admissions and all of that. Some people kind of
missed a beat, though, right? Because they
did miss a beat
on Zoom. Well, but the Zoom, we could have an argument, and I guess I'm in this business, so I shouldn't say things that my employer wouldn't love. But I think you could make a pretty strong argument that taking all your classes by Zoom from your parents' basement and going to college may or may not be perfect substitutes for each other.
Right. But, at least they had the option. We know that, I saw a heartbreaking photograph, Dr. Wolf, of a young white child obviously someone who didn't have a lot of money. His parents didn't have a lot of money at all. He was sitting outside of his school. Oh, it could make me cry when I think about it now. Sitting outside of his school with his coat on, and it was cold outside, but he had a little laptop because that's where he could do his homework. He didn't have internet access at home. Wow.
Yeah. So look, lots of schools closed. Lots of kids also who are lower income might rely on the school for basic food and medicine, which people don't always kind of keep in mind. And we rely on the schools to help stop the worst of the abuses that sometimes take place in homes. And for some kids who don't have a single solitary place to live all the time, which is now an increasing problem for young kids in this country, the school might be the kind of oasis of stability in a life that might be pretty chaotic, where they don't know exactly where they're going to be, or where their next meal is coming from, or when their clothes will get washed, or who will be tucking them into what bed, right? So school does things beside teach people, particularly for low-income younger kids, right, where it can be literally a lifeline on a whole number of different levels. But just to go back to Hannah's question, this idea is that when things go wrong, it's the government, and when things go right, it's private industry. It's a big part of the American ideology, right? So, for instance, the government doesn't do broadband unless it's subsidized, which has been a big fight. It was defeated by the Republican Party largely in the Build Back Better Party fights over that legislation. Private for-profit telcos do it. Now, they may be subsidized in some cases, and they may have subsidized packages or free packages for some places, but they decide where they think they can make a profit by building infrastructure. And if your area, because it's too rural or remote or low income or what have you, is a low priority, the stuff gets built later or less high quality or not at all. Right now, the government can come in and try to use incentives and tax breaks and spending to try to remedy that, but it'd be unusual to blame only the government. Likewise, we don't have a state healthcare system in this country. Somehow we avoided even having that discussion over the last few years of the pandemic. But we did kind of have, probably not a perfectly messaged, public healthcare response to COVID, which I think confused people because we don't have it for anything else, which is probably why we've done so much less well and had a harder time than most of the other advanced countries because they all have national health systems, which we don't have, right? And that also means that we have lots of people who are at high risk because they have pre-existing conditions. And if you look at the medical research, it's pretty clear that a fair number of these people don't know that they have pre-existing conditions, or they do know, but the cost of medicine, the lack of health insurance, intermittent health insurance, intermittent access to subsidized prescription drugs means that they're not either properly or not at all following the treatment pattern, the treatment course that you're supposed to for these serious diseases, many of which are pretty treatable if they're carefully and consistently treated and are not so good. The outcomes are not so good if they're not carefully and consistently treated, right? So we know all these things, and that's probably the snitch part of your friend's, your analyst's insight, which is a good one. And it's always hard to pick the strings apart of what you just discovered and what's new. And it's always a bit of a fool's errand, although important to figure out what did COVID shine the light on that was already there versus what came with COVID.
Well, what came with COVID and what was already there?
Well, so what came is a massive government stimulus. So initially we had a real decline in the fortunes of low-income households. Then we had a massive wave of government programs. Okay, many of them programs the Republican Party liked and voted for when they were passed by Donald Trump and then decided they hated later when he was no longer the president. But nonetheless, to credit to both parties, emergency measures passed by Republicans and Democrats actually pretty quickly to try to sort of head off the worst of it, which were incredibly successful. So during about the year of those programs, inequality actually fell for U.S. households. So when the government came in and tried to prop up the income and increase the unemployment benefit and extended the eligibility and pushed into the tax credits and the children's credits, that has had a major effect in alleviating poverty for a lot of people. But those were quickly abandoned. Now, some states abandoned them earlier than others, and so we have a little bit of an odd laboratory experiment here because while a lot of these are federal programs, they might have been cut off at different dates. They were cut off at different dates and different locations. So the experiment's a little bit not exactly apples to apples, to be fair. But what we've seen is a wholesale decimation of women in work, probably because women in many households, even if they're, a man and a woman in a household, the household duties fall disproportionately on the woman. And women still face pretty significant wage discrimination. So if you earn less and you're expected to do a full shift second home, your ability to keep it going and while adding the full-time job of childcare might have been too much for a lot of women. And we can sort of see that in double-digit declines in female labor force participation in the low-income and middle-income range. So we know that it was really heavy hit to women. And we also know that women and communities of color and immigrant communities are heavily over-indexed into the service trades. All kinds of point-of-sale retail, restaurant work, salon work, and those businesses were hit pretty hard.
But
right? They were hit by COVID.
No, you're right. But as you're bringing up this data about working class and poor people, at the same time, the people who needed it the least got the biggest lift. The very wealthy saw their wealth explode. How did that happen?
Yeah,
as the bottom 99% really exploded. They just blossomed.
Well, most of the stimulus we will do, and most of the tax breaks we do, are more helpful higher up than lower down. And whenever we make lots of cheap money available, it does a lot of things, and it can be stimulative to the economy, but it floods into the stock markets, where about 80% of the stocks are owned by about 5 to 10% of the country. And it jacks up the value of property because most people purchase or look at property based on how much it costs to buy, to own it, right? So what does it cost me every month? And that's a function of the interest rate, the cost of borrowing the money, and the price. And so as soon as you make the interest rate lower, you've effectively pushed up the price. So large landowners, landholders, landlords did quite well. Renters did not. And a lot of the assistance was also targeted at landlords. So that helped, other than the eviction moratorium, which only helps on the sort of the bottom, the folks who are going to get evicted. So you had help go disproportionately to people who didn't need the help, but were, as always, happy to take it. And that's the funny part of, hey, are there people getting the unemployment insurance benefits who don't need them? Of course, right? But are there people getting the $5 trillion in Federal Reserve balance sheet who don't need it? Of course. You might be more worried about the 63 people who walked off with $1 trillion than a guy who was able to get a cheeseburger, not a hamburger, 4 times last month.
What is our takeaway? Because we're watching inflation. People are really hurting right now. The average person is really, really struggling. Even as we're watching the wealthiest, we're seeing their wealth continue to increase. What is our takeaway? Because you mentioned healthcare. For us not to have a real discussion on Medicare for all or universal single payer in the midst of a pandemic that, oh, sure, the vaccine, well, you already paid for that. Be very clear. It's not free. It was something that you paid for using government scientists. The fact is, people still go to the hospital, and they are saddled with huge bills.
We don't want to be dissuading people from getting the medical care they need, right? My point was,
no, that was not dissuasion. Yeah. That was just saying, wait a minute, because they're making $1,000 a second. And I'm just saying, I'm talking about having some justice for people. Because, I don't think you should walk out of the hospital with tens of thousands of dollars of bills. It's too much.
No, look, you shouldn't be scared sick by your medical bills. You should be able to concentrate on whatever's wrong with you that's making you contemplate the doctor. And then one of the tragedies of American healthcare is, for all the people without care and without adequate care, we simply pay more than everyone else for less good outcomes. And people they never include that. We pay more and get less. This is the pay more, get less program. Right? So that is always something worth looking at. So if you do something different from everyone else and they're paying less and getting more, at some point it might dawn on you, right?
Like, wow, I'm not sure this is the best, right? Like, you don't have to be an out and out, deep out of the box genius to stumble on that realization, or maybe you do. But in any case, look, there's obviously an issue there. But part of the reason for that tragedy is people are afraid they don't have a primary care physician. People need to have a primary care physician or a nurse practitioner, someone they work with who actually knows them and knows their health, and with whom they have a trusted rapport where they can talk to these people. And then they can do preventative medicine. And preventative medicine is massively cheaper and leads to massively better outcomes, because it's someone who helps you not get sick or manage a minor illness, not what we otherwise have, which is deny you all your basic care, wait till you're really sick, go into an emergency room, wait around a long time, nearly die, and then have hundreds of thousands of dollars of emergency care to keep you alive and suffering longer so that you can die prematurely.
I've got 20 seconds. When can we have that conversation?
I mean, I think it's probably overdue.
I agree. I'm just saying, I think this is an opportunity, as we look at this legacy of increased inequality, it's an opportunity for us to get things right, Doctor.
I'd say something else, too, that people won't agree with, that I'll probably offend everyone. I don't think national health care has anything to do with right and left and progressive and conservative, just like I don't think civil rights do. People think that, but I think it's just if you have a modern sense of decency and co-respectivity, and if you want to be in a functional democracy. A functional democracy can't ration sickness and death by income. It doesn't work very well.
But not particularly.
So I don't think it.
This is airborne. I mean, that's crazy. At the end of the day,
even when it's not airborne, right? It ends up following the pattern that. Right? It ends up following racial bias and gender bias and regional bias and rural urban bias, right? And gay straight bias. And it ends up being a lethal form of social prejudice.
But you know what? Next week we're going to continue.
If you're serious about that, you got to put it at the top of the list.
Absolutely. Deal with this inequality. It exposed it. It enhanced it. We got to do something about it. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you, everybody. God bless you.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world. We can do it.
Dr. Wolf, thank you so much. And thank you for your
Dr.
patience.
Jackson,
yes.
I'm not sure that you're going to be getting tons of ads from the American Pharmaceutical Council after your show today.
No, I mean, look, I'm not slamming them. All I'm simply saying is
You're going to have
this.
to do one of these.
No, I mean,
you
no.
have to do the vitamin face healing money now.
No, this is not a slam. My whole point has been during this pandemic, why are we not talking about Medicare for all? Why are we not talking about a universal single payer plan? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, wait a minute, while I'm paying you to develop these medicines, to develop these vaccines, which you're not particularly keen on developing because you like to sell drugs that I have to use on a regular basis. I mean, John Nichols put this in his book, Coronavirus Criminals and Pandemic Profiteers.
Right? If hypertension and diabetes have a footprint in this country that's not totally dissimilar from COVID, right?
That's right. But the thing is, you can get medicine.
COVID was a national emergency.
Well, you see, but the thing is about these,
those are manageable.
Well, not only that, it's medicine that you can continue to pay the pharmaceutical companies for. That was his point. And my point is simply this. I'm just saying, let's have the conversations that really matter. Because the president gave Frank Watkins, who has been Reverend Jackson's communications director for 50 plus years. He said President Biden gave 62 speeches on COVID and the vaccines. I'm with it. But he gave 39 speeches on Build Back Better and 2 as of last week on voting rights. I'm simply saying in those 62 speeches on COVID, which were primarily about getting vaccinated, put in there a program that is popular all over the country, which is Medicare for all. People need that. Yeah. I mean, that's. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to understand it.
Agree, but I don't think these are separate. So
no, they're not.
Minority opinion.
Yeah.
But look, so long as we don't have a real commitment to voting rights, we have voter suppression, and we don't know what the will of the people is, because you can't know what someone if you don't ask them.
If they're not voting?
You can guess. Yeah, you can guess, but you don't know. And that's a pretty big problem.
right? So I don't think those things are unrelated. And I think we have a lot of policies that are passing in Washington, which the clear and distinct majority of Americans hate.
Do not support.
And,
Wait.
yeah,
Hold
if you
on.
look,
The
right?
Democrats.
If you look at people.
The Democrats. Wait a minute. Let me give you this data. Got it from David Daley. The House, the Senate Democrats represent 7 million more voters than the Senate Republicans. The House Democrats represent 4 million plus more voters than the House Republicans. Voters.
Yeah.
I mean, this is.
But even the majority of Republican voters don't support a lot of what the legislature is passing.
Of course not.
Right? If you ask Republicans, a lot of Republicans, they're on the same page as a lot of Democrats. So sometimes the bipartisan divide is bigger among the elected officials than the actual people. Not always, but on some issues. I think, for instance, a lot of Republican voters will tell you that they're against abortion, but they don't think it should be illegal.
Absolutely.
And if you make abortion illegal, that's not a decision about whether you think it's right or morally appropriate or consistent with your faith. That's about whether you think someone else should do what you think is right or your faith. And I think generally Americans try not to let people or ethical decisions if they don't have to. Right now, obviously, there are some people who like that idea, but it's not universal, to say the least. So I think some of these divides are created more by the people who don't vote than the people who are sent to represent those of us who do vote.
Well, absolutely. And when you make it harder for people to vote, I mean, look, they can chase you down for any kind of bill. The thing is, voting should be a very simple process. It has been made infinitely difficult because it was never the original idea of the founders of the Republic from the 1600s for the average person to vote. I mean, and we're still there. We still have the royalists. They're now called the oligarchs. We still have that issue. We're still fighting an issue, issues that we were fighting 400 years ago, 300 years ago, 200, 100. We're still fighting them.
5 weeks ago.
Yes.
And look, the point is also everybody else has figured this out, right? So it's kind of a normal thing. They put everything on the same cycle. So Senate every 6 years, House every 2 years, President every 4 years. Insane, pointless, logistically a nightmare, right? Everything should be in the same cycle. And everybody else has figured out to put it on a holiday or give people the day off because it jacks up the turnout.
But we
so, if something works for the rest of the world, right? Remember, keep in mind, we're 4.2, 4.3% of the world's population, right? So if something is working A-OK for 95% of the world, it might be worth a look.
But but that's where our hubris gets in the way. Excessive pride is a problem, everybody, because you think you know more than everybody else. For those of us who call ourselves Christian, whether we behave that way or not, you do know Jesus didn't speak English. Okay? Genius.
Liar.
And goodness, genius and goodness exist everywhere. We were talking earlier this morning about the African paradox. Oh, I'm sorry?
Are you talking about this because he was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man?
Oh, yeah, Michelangelo, that's right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Probably spoke German.
And the thing is,
the early form.
Honestly, given what Jesus taught, if he had been blonde-haired with blue-eyed, he'd be all right with me. But the fact is, he was not. And he was African descended. And he had hair like lamb's wool. Okay? Tight, nappy hair. So, come on, you guys. That having been said, my point is, there's genius and goodness and something for us to learn everywhere. There's something called the African paradox. Africa has largely escaped the COVID-19 pandemic. Very largely. They've had barely any deaths. I mean, and we're not studying them and asking, how did you do it? What are you doing that we're not doing? Europe and the so-called developed world, we're stumbling over ourselves, tripping over ourselves, trying to figure it out, I guess. When you have the biggest continent on Earth, more than 1.3 billion people who figured out something. So I'm just saying, I think that, you said something so many years ago that stayed with me, Max. You said, we've got to grow up in our politics. And we do. We really do. Because what we're doing is not working. At all. It's crazy. Massive inequality. Just by every metric, we have fallen down. By every metric.
But I think if people buy the Santita Jackson vitamin pack,
don't you dare put that on me. Don't you dare.
You don't have the vitamins on the market.
Don't you dare. What was it, Dr. Oz or somebody? Oh, don't you even try it.
He's a competitor of ours. But the doctor hair tonic is showing incredible results.
Don't you dare.
Sadly, it doesn't work on the scalp, but it's incredibly powerful on the ears and nose.
I'm like, are you kidding me? Don't you dare put that on me.
100% success on palms, but no success on the top of the head.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, what?
It probably needs to be used with overdose levels, like 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams daily of the Santita Jackson multi-pack vitamins. Available right now for $99.
Everybody, I do not sell vitamins. Okay? Don't you listen to him. I do not sell vitamins. I don't sell vitamins.
The first on the market, vitamin bib, in case the excessive milligram
do not listen to this wackadoodle, this nutty guy. I do not sell vitamins. I'm not hawking vitamins. Are you kidding me? I take them.
Not yet.
No.
Not yet.
Oh, gosh. I can't believe you just said that. People are going to... Santita, you selling vitamins?
You want to have a successful podcast, you got to do this. You got to either come up with your own absolute not so miracle cure for COVID or something, like arthritis or something. Hopefully something where there's little clinical legislation to support criminal conviction. And then, sell away. I think survival gear is big, too. Well, I don't know, maybe that's less big in the urban areas.
You think?
I don't know any survivalists, actually. It might be more of a country, like a rural thing.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
Because when people tell you in New York to dig your own secret tunnel, you're like, where and how? I mean, there's dirt here. Somebody owns all the dirt.
Is that
you
crazy?
Your neighbor shut the yard, he'll shoot you in the back. I think they'll catch you.
Oh, my
you'll
goodness.
hit a sewer line pretty quickly, and your hideaway will turn into a real poop storm. So, yeah, I don't know that many people with the helmets and the 2 years of poisonous water in a barrel underground. But that might be a function of where you live.
On a more serious note, I would like to visit.
Issue your own vitamin?
Well, no, critical race theory, and you know how you sent me something this morning, and I've been paying attention to the story. They're banning this Pulitzer Prize winning novel about the Holocaust, and but they're doing that with a lot of works that tell they give you the full range of the human experience. And I'd love to have you come on and talk about that.
Kids. Yeah, look, but it'd be fair to them too, right? If you have to choose between teaching kids history or exposing them to rodent nudity, it is a tough call.
I don't want.
I'm not being serious.
I'm like,
I would rather my kids see a nude mouse and learn history than not see a nude mouse and not learn history. Because I'm also not really sure when people talk about nude animals what they mean. Because in my limited experience, animals don't wear clothes that often.
Like, just help me with that one. I'm like, nude animals. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I think animals are pretty comfortable being nude. I think most of them are most of the time. Kind of pictured on a card or a sweater. They don't tend to be clothed. I feel like that's pretty okay. Again, I'm not a zoologist, but yeah, that particular emergency is hard to unwrap.
Max, that's so crazy. But you know what? I think that we've got Carol Soskin said, thanks for the laugh. He is crazy. You got to understand that.
Well, one thing is true. Since I started taking your vitamins, I haven't seen a single nude animal. Just putting that out there.
Carol, attention to Max. Well, John said some people put clothes on their pets, and it's okay.
Yeah, those people are got to cry for help.
I got it. Animals are born with their clothes.
I get the sweater thing. If you have a dog and it's cold out.
Y'all. This is.
By the way, those sweaters would still be considered provocative. If you went around with just a sweater on your arms and shoulders, you'd be arrested. So that animal might still be semi-nude. You have to ask the Tennessee School Board. I'm not sure about animals.
Max, but this is speaking to something that's really going on here. And I think that we need to pay attention. I really do.
to be honest, this is not like trying to be hostile or judgmental of anyone. People who feel like there's too much sexual energy in an unclothed animal should be investigated and should not be allowed to have pets.
Is that crazy?
I think that's a basic social ordinance. If you think two animals are often too risque in their clothing or design or too nude, like you probably should not be encouraged to hang around the pet world.
A nude animal. I mean,
yeah,
I couldn't. I really. I don't know.
You should do a illustrated Bible where all the animals are fully dressed in sort of, Victorian garb.
I don't pay any attention to him. He's got me hawking animals. He's got me
ready?
Exploiting naked animals.
Here's a good one. White Jesus and the animal haberdashery. That's our children's book.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's crazy.
Comes with the vitamin pack. And for the first 50,000 callers, you get 60 liters of Dr. Wolf's miracle hair tonic.
That's right. He is selling vitamins, just so that you know.
Yep.
Oh my!
I should be probably better than what I'm doing.
No. It's it's okay. You are all right.
Bad economic advice versus vitamins. I don't know, it's a toss-up, right? What does the world need less? It's always what I ask myself every day before I get to work.
Oh my
Anyone
Max.
who knows me can definitely attest to. I'm living that. I'm walking the walk.
But don't you think that that's speaking to something that's going on here?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, look, I think maybe the choice of the banning that book on Holocaust Remembrance Day was a little plan of somebody or another who got a thrill out of it, or just bad luck. But yeah, I mean, look, I think book banning is always, you'd have to be really nervous about a book to ban it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if you wanted to ban a book right now, I'm not sure that would be the one that would go to the top of the list.
Yeah. Well, but I think it's speaking to beyond that specific book.
People right now?
Yeah.
You're just excited when they're reading a book.
Oh my gosh. But it's
the
just
age of videos and TV and YouTube. It's hard to get someone to sit down and work their way through something in a medium that may be less immediately stimulating for a lot of younger people than a video game or a video or television or internet or whatever the competitors might be.
Well, it's got me thinking, because there's so much going on right now. Like, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on, and I think we need to be mindful about what is happening. I really do, because it was just my mother and I were talking about it, and she's not despairing of it.
No, there's a sick streak. I mean, one of the things that COVID snitched on is there's a sick streak, right? There's a streak of folks out there who seem to be interested in hurting other people or seeing them worse off or suffering or unable to get ahead. And it's certainly not the best of us as humans that draws joy from that.
That's bothering me, and I'm seeing, these strains of, anti-Black racism, anti-Jewish racism, all of this anti-Hispanic,
I see animal nudity everywhere.
Well,
crap.
Well, we are naked now. Okay, we're being
50%.
laid bare.
Yeah. It's true.
And that is really,
I mean,
it's an opportunity.
Hope, however naive it might be sometimes, there's the hope, right, that a shared trauma, because look, no matter what, anyone who's sort of old enough and with it enough to be conscious of what's going on in the world, we have a pretty profound shared experience of trauma and fear and illness. Right? I mean, you got over 1 million people have probably died by almost any reasonable measure here. You have over 30 million people have gotten this thing, probably much more than that. That's a pretty profound shared experience. And a shared trauma can just as well bring folks together as drive them apart. It's all about how you respond.
That's right. And we've not seized that opportunity. And that's something that I think we've got to work on. because it is in a crisis, the Chinese symbol, crisis and opportunity share a coin. And we need to look at that. This crisis it gives us an opportunity to either go up, go down, to be driven apart or to come together. I mean, and we don't have to come together and completely agree, no, but I mean, just to see each other as human beings and agree that, you know what, there's a common good. Let's just agree on that. Let's agree on the common good. Because that is really that is at the heart of the social contract, the common good.
Could be.
Yeah,
Should be.
it should be. And good we ought to have in common. Okay? So that's my thing.
People will collectively do better and generally feel better if they do something decent for each other. That cheap thrill of getting one over on someone else usually doesn't last, and you end up chasing what is a bad interpersonal high at that point, right? So it can be a dividend to doing right by someone else, separate and apart from their gain. Doesn't need to be your loss, but there can be a gain to you. I don't know from personal experience, but I've read some pretty compelling books.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm just kidding. I think I have been nice to someone at least once.
Well, you're a sweetheart. Now, you know how I feel about that. But I think that
I'm my only fan. I definitely memorized it.
I'm not your only fan.
You've used your powers of persuasion to rope in someone else on the edge.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, and tis my duty and my business. How about that? That's right.
Thank you kindly.
That's right. And I'm going to continue to do that. So, but
I'm going to go do the most exciting thing in the world shortly, an investment committee meeting.
Oh, wow, that's nice. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, don't think so. But it's duty calls.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today.
Duty. Yeah. Okay. Well, always my pleasure. I hope that we were able to provide some insight to someone out there, or at least, I always feel like my public appearances have at least one redeeming feature, if no other, which I do make other people feel better about themselves.
No. Oh, it means so much. You have no idea. You have no idea.
To me as well. I enjoy doing it.
Well, I love having you. And I mean, and several people who my father has met, one of my father's doctors cited you by name. He listens to the show. My father called me. He was so excited. He said, there are people who really listen to your show. And this guy cited you by name. I said, what? I said, yeah. He is great. Yes. And I thought that was so wonderful.
Very kind of him.
It was so wonderful. Oh, I just thought it was wonderful. I really did.
It's fine.
So, all right, sweetie.
Well, thank you for the time and the opportunity. Talk soon.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, sweetie. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Love you all, everybody. Yes, Dr. Wolf is a closet comedian. Hey, nothing about it. He is hilarious. You have no idea. I mean, and he makes me laugh at the most inopportune times. But it's great. I love you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow, Lord willing, on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody stay good, stay warm. And Lorraine, we're going to get there. We are going to get there. In fact, I received a note from a very dear friend, brilliant Haitian-American lawyer, Anastasia Sanat, who's been on the show. And we're going to have a conversation about this friction that exists between blacks, African Americans who were born in the United States and whose families have been here historically, and immigrant blacks. And I think that's a conversation that we absolutely need to have. And it's a nuanced conversation, so it can't just be a one-off, but we're going to have that conversation because I think there's a way for us to have common ground. Yeah, absolutely. I know you'd love it, and I will love it too, because there has to be an acknowledgement, particularly just of all of our experiences, right? Because we all approach America very differently, and I think that if we have a conversation about it, I mean, really, really, really have a conversation about it, I think we can get somewhere. I really do. I really, really do. So I'm so looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. I mean, there has to be an understanding of what Black people who are descendants of people who were enslaved in the United States have endured and continue to endure. And I remember Newt Gingrich more than 20 years ago making the distinction between black people who were descendants of slaves here and immigrant blacks. And he, of course, elevated immigrant blacks over blacks who come out of the slave experience. And I've, it's been my experience with some of my friends who are from the diaspora, those who are not enlightened, of course. This is something they don't understand, why blacks don't take advantage of the opportunities here and all of that. And I'm like, there's a lot to this. And then there are a lot of games that are being played to keep us at odds with each other. And we shouldn't fall for it. Like, we should fight to lower the fares to get to Africa. It's easy to get to Europe. And it's easy for a lot of people to get to Africa, but everybody except us. And it's, we need to freeze on that. Nina, what you say? Oh, you and Carol, I just love you all. Oh boy. Nina said, listening to Santita Jackson, that's not true, to all of us, and meeting so many people here has been life-changing. The big positive amongst the strains of living during COVID. And you know what? We're going to do something where we can, those of us who are in Chicago, where we can meet in person. We'll be distanced, of course, and Chaparral can look forward to that. I'm really looking forward to that. Because I love you all, and you all have really been a gift to me in my life throughout COVID, because I had to get up and get dressed and be here. And it's been my privilege. It's been my privilege. It's been my privilege to work for you and to serve you and to speak with you every day. It really, really is my blessing. Thank you for being the blessing in my life. And thank you for opening your hearts and allowing me in yours. I love you, everybody. Have a great day. See you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show.